Hey, everybody. We are live, I assume. If we're not, we're just going to talk to ourselves and we won't even care if anybody's watching us, which might be a better way to go anyway, because we may pass out. I think Rod will. So anyway, this is the inaugural episode of A Dash of Cyber. Yes, we just made that up. But it sounded good and we're going to roll with it. So yeah, so today, Alexandre Blanc, he needs no introduction, and we're going to make sure he gets grumpy on this. Just, don't worry, I got ideas. And then we have Brad Rhodes and we have Rod. And Rod did not decide to put his last name in the chat. So we are going to make up a new last name for him because of that. That will come later in the show, and that is not my discretion. So anyway, yeah, and I won't even introduce myself because in case this goes horribly wrong, I want anonymity. So anyway, yeah, so today's topic, we wanted to go over visibility and actually providing you with the means to really get some insight into your network. Because one of the biggest problems, and I think you guys can actually ascertain and really promote this idea that you can't protect what you don't know about. And whether that's from logs, whether that's from inventory, asset management, doesn't matter. It really has we all know and read about, and we looked at this news article months ago, or maybe it was years ago, where they found like a Raspberry Pi in a closet in NASA that was collecting data because somebody didn't have good auditing and inventory and visibility into what was going on inside their network. So I think that is a great place to start. And I say, let's take it from there. So if you want to maybe take it away, how about let's start with the guy in the top left, Alexandre Blanc. So, maybe open the show and or let us know what you think in terms of in regards to visibility. And everybody chime in completely randomly, sporadically, make it into chaos if you need.
Yeah, you started like very formal and it looks like super serious, but we just say we're going to take it cool. So, you start with the whole thing like, you cannot protect what you don't know you have. And it's like, oh no, they're going to speak about inventory stuff again. It's not something I really care about. Can I do that stuff? Is there a way to take it like more relaxed? Who's the target? Like I was speaking about SMBs, I guess, like people who do not have security people inside, and they just want to know how to do that stuff. Actionable item, less theoretical, if we can say that, and more practical. So, do you know what you have on your network? That's a good question. And do you know how to protect it? So we all have like tips and stuff that we're going to share about, like Brad, Rod, myself, some tools that we use in the past, some tools that we use now, and how we can tackle all that thing. And it's just relax, and we are open to question, and the show is going to evolve over this topic that you like. Go ahead. I'm going to drop a name. I liked back then, that was the tool called Look at LAN. I don't know if you guys knew that stuff. Look at LAN, a small window application that would scan the network. I think it was a early stage of network inventory stuff. But I'll let you guys introduce with your take on all of that.
All right.
Okay, yeah. How about Brad? How about you want to grab that and say see what you think?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So visibility is one of those things that it has many meanings to many people, right? And obviously, an obvious place to start with visibility is what hardware do you have, right? And hardware, as Ron mentioned, it could be a Raspberry Pi in a closet at NASA. It could be printers. It could be your networking gear. It could be servers. It could be your cloud, right? Even though we don't see that as traditional hardware, but your cloud is still a part of your infrastructure you need to think about, And so what people tend to do, and this is just a fact of the way things are being built today, is things are built so that you drop them in, they work, and you forget about them, right? And that's where the danger lies. And the threat actors out there, they love to find stuff that you've forgotten about. From an external perspective, and that's where I spend a lot of my time from a research perspective and just digging around. Alexander mentioned a tool. I'll mention one too. Shodan.io is a great place to start. If you've never looked at your organization from the outside, right? And from the outside, right? And in terms of what's exposed, right? You might be surprised. I've done incident responses with organizations that said, we don't know how this happened. And then you go do a quick search, 2 minutes in Shodan, and you go, is this the server that was breached? And they go, yeah, how did you find that? And it seems like magic, but it's not, right? And so you really have to understand that visibility is a really broad topic, and we're going to dig into that because I have other thoughts on visibility because I think it's more than just hardware. It's a much bigger set of things, and so so it's much a bigger set of things. So I'll throw that out there, and so Rod, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, and I agree. So the enterprise network is no longer the enterprise network anymore. So you've got the hybrid cloud and work from home and everything else. So there's a ton of different. The attack surface has grown tremendously, but visibility is still key, right? So I mean, and you nailed it, Brad, with IoT, whether it's sensors or video cameras or we've made it so simple. The industry's made it so simple to put stuff on your network, but then there's no real tools to manage it. And as you said, when you put it on there and you forget about it, so it was 2 years ago, I put in some network video cameras, never patched them, never did anything about them, but they're sitting there. They are a part of the attack surface. They're wide open, right? And so when you don't know what you have in your inventory, and I don't want to talk about inventory management because that gets into a whole different world, but if you don't know what you have under management, you can't secure it. And that was the whole topic of today, and that's why we wanted to get together is start to throw out some things that people can actually start to figure out what they have under management. And so if you talk on the enterprise side, I lean towards Nmap because I came out of the Linux world, and so using Nmap, you can scan your network, you can figure out what the heck, and you can use it beyond your network as well too. You can scan your cloud, you can scan whatever you need to get an idea what services are running, what IP addresses are being used, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to use something, and once you have that inventory, quote unquote, then you can start to figure out how you protect it. Right? If you got a bunch of old Windows servers who haven't been patched, or Linux servers that haven't been patched, or IoT devices that haven't been patched, now at least you can start to list it and chop it down piece by piece. Without that, you're just hoping and praying that you throw a firewall in front of it and we're covered, which does not work in this world anymore.
Cool. I got a question for one of you guys to field, and it's going to be really super complicated that only you'll be able to answer. And maybe some of these guys on this chat thingy here, except for that one guy, something wrong with him. Anyway, so in terms of finding out what's available on your network, I mean, there's one thing about, just taking a quick peek in an audit, let's say at this point in time, so point in time auditing of what's going on. So what would we do in terms of, like SMBs, they have situations where they have employees bringing in devices from home. We all know BYOD, which is, scary in certain scenarios and situations, but there's going to be cases where companies don't mind staff bringing in, cell phones and devices and putting them on their network. And obviously, we're not going to have a lot of in-depth visibility into those devices unless, of course, they have a policy that says you connect it to our network, we are going to do DPI on it or something like that, which is probably not going to happen. So, these devices come along, it's an iPhone, it's an Android phone, having that visibility in there. So how do they continually monitor and actually have, what kind of tools have that kind of auditing to say, oh, like, hey, what's that doing there? I mean, I remember when I was doing this years ago, I would actually go into the firewall into pfSense every so often. I would do an ARP lookup and I would say, hey, who owns Boo Boo's phone? And kind of yell that across the floor. It was a small office and say, who's that? And just because, I would see that pop up. But I think, that's not good enough in today's scenario because things happen very quickly. We see ransomware attacks now and people can get there and encrypt millions of files within minutes. So we can't actually be delinquent in visibility for even a matter of minutes in today's world. We actually have to have that kind of alerting going on. That shouldn't be there. That's new. That wasn't something I was expecting. So what do you say to that in terms of how do we get that visibility? Not only do we have the ability to look, to have real-time alerting, but to also act upon it, because you actually have to be able to make decisions on what to do as well.
So okay, I'm going to start on it. Rod was speaking about Nmap. For you, there is also ZenMap, which is a GUI, and it's going to be more easy for people. So you raise a good point, Ron. And my concern is that, I see SMBs that are not at all working in IT, and they have no idea about anything they have. They just need a Windows machine, and they do the accounting on stuff, and there is no one with the ability to even understand. It's good enough, if they have a complex password, and if it's not the same password for all of them. So there are tools, there are solutions that allow visibility on the network and inventory, and sometimes you may wonder, but these companies that are not aware, and now it's working remotely as well. What will be the action, to make sure that you have a baseline? Like they will have what, antivirus? Okay, that's something. Should these organizations do stuff by themselves? Because there are two approaches. There is like the geek staff, the one that looks for tools that will use ZenMap or Nmap and scan for the network and look for this solution. They may even want an XDR solution on the endpoint of the machine to get some peace. But there is also the organization that have no idea about anything at all. So what do we say? I mean, I meet these guys in the work side of things, and we recommend XDR, and this is a managed solution, okay? So they don't have to think about it because they have no staff to think about it. And even if something happened, they don't know. Like, would you know if any, like the SMB, the pop and mom shop, they have a couple of computers, and someone come and plug a Raspberry Pi, as you said, like at NASA, they will never know. And just in case, because everything is working, they're not going to unplug it because, if it works, don't touch it.
Yeah.
So that's the gap we have between organization and regulation. And what I see coming to this organization is that they do handle data, payment card. They have the payment system, like a credit card or debit card paying stuff. And the regulation is changing. I don't know in the States, but I mean, we saw that in California. And this is coming in Quebec as well, where I'm located. The Law 64 is coming this summer with a lot of fines for organizations that will lose this information. But how about these SMBs? They have no IDs, So what should they do? I mean, I have my take. I think they should have XDR, and they should find partner to help them to get a minimum baseline.
100%.
But
you don't have. Sorry, Eli.
Go ahead.
If you don't have the skill set, you need to be true to yourself, right? If you don't have it in house, you don't have the people to do it, then you still have a business to run, and you don't want it to go bankrupt because of some jackass on the internet decides to run ransomware or hack you or whatever. Then you got to be true to yourself and find a service provider that you trust, and and do your due diligence on them and hand the keys over to them, and then audit them on a regular basis and make sure they're giving you the service that you're paying for. But you can't just kind of bury your head in the sand and hope that it's not you, right? And a lot of these SMBs are part of the supply chain, right? They supply services to bigger companies. So they become part of the attack surface. If I can get into them, I can get into Coca-Cola or whatever, right? So they can't just bury their heads in the sand. And the stats are pretty high that when they do get ransomware or attacked, etc., that a lot of them don't stay in business. So those, from a pure survivability standpoint, you have to kind of reach out and get help.
Okay. So we have to take a little bit of a pause because of Rod. I'm going to blame him again. I'm going to blame him so bad. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to put him right there. And because he used the word jackass, I no longer can market this to JK up to grade 3 because of Rod. So if everybody wants to just look at Rod and stare at him and just go boo, because thanks to Rod, we no longer can actually be come into the public schools and educate the children. Yes. Thank you, Rod.
Yeah, Rod, I forgive you because as a French speaker, I don't really know what you mean, so that you don't have to mean. It's like a technical term. I don't get it, so it's fine.
But it's funny though, because like I think, but Rod makes a really good point, right? It's SMBs, right? They get into business. So for me being from the United States, down south of my friends here in Canada, we like the HIPAA regulation, right? The HIPAA fines have, if you've not paid attention, have really gone up over the years. And it would take, one violation for a small mom and pop, say, medical transcriptionist provider to have a breach, and they're done. Right, they're finished. That's the end of the story for them, right? They're out of business, right? And so you have to pay attention to that. But one of the things that's always hard for organizations, right, especially SMBs, right? And I agree, XDRs are a great solution if you can afford to get an MSP, MSSP, XDR capability from wherever, right? You should do that. It's really, really a good idea, right? Because again, you may not have the staff to do that, right? But when you think about like nonprofits and stuff like that, they don't have the budgets, unfortunately. I wish that they did. It would be great if they had the budgets for things, but they don't, right? So you default to finding things. So one of the big things I see in environments today is obviously Wi-Fi, right? And so, it's ubiquitous. Everybody puts out a Wi-Fi. We don't have to run any wires. It's great. I'm not telling anybody here anything they don't know. However, right, if you allow your employees to bring in she who shall not be named, right? That would be smart speaker, give it a name. I don't care, right? Doesn't matter, right? Right, yeah. She who shall not be named, right? Because if I were to say her name right now, she'd probably say something back to me, and that's a terrible idea. We don't want to do that, right? So, but again, if employees are allowed to bring all that stuff in, right, which in some environments, that's what happens, right? One, you throw defense and depth out the window because you don't have any more coverage of anything, right? And everything's just going out the network, right? There's lots of things we'll talk about in future podcasts about how you can protect yourself from some of that stuff. We're talking about visibility. And one of my favorite tools for visibility, just basics on Wi-Fi, right? And so means you have to be connected to your Wi-Fi access point to use it, is Fing. So Fing, and I dropped that in the chat pod for you, Ron, so you want to put that in a banner. They have both a mobile app and they have a desktop app where you can actually see what's on your Wi-Fi network, right? And it's always an interesting case study to see who's connected to your network, right? And goodness forbid, if you have a 5-character password and you're running, WEP or something, please don't run WEP. Don't, right? But goodness, if you're running WEP, right, Lord, you'll learn some stuff about what's on your Wi-Fi that you had no idea of, right? And so definitely want to look at that one. I commend that. And that's a great one. It's a great one for your home networks too, especially with all of us, working so much from home these days, right? Who knows what's on your home network as well, so definitely good to get some visibility there.
I think WEP stand for will end up pound.
Yeah. We'll end up pound. I agree. Yes.
Yeah.
So
no, that's a great tip. I mean, I think we talk about, and Fing is new to me. I have actually never used that one. There's a couple that I think we've all used many over time, and I think that's where it's complicated. So I would like to kind of steer this back to, SMBs and even. Let's not go maybe to the home user yet. I think, that might have to be a different show in terms of what home users can do. But if we keep it to this SMB track, how do they get started in terms of they came to the show, what do we give them in terms of, let's say, a step-by-step guide to kind of get started of say, what do I do next? Because I look at everything in life, regardless of what I'm doing is, what do I do next? What is the next step? And there's always going to be steps along the track that we have to do. And I think from an SMB perspective, I'm sitting here, whether I'm the tech person, I'm typically, if it's an SMB, it's going to be somebody wearing 50 different hats that somebody gets delegated to handle and help and know where to go to even start getting this visibility. We already talked about, they should reach out to and find some help. That, of course, might have to be a whole other show about where do you go to find help? I mean, saying go find help and find somebody with skills to help you. There's certain things that we have to have in a checklist to say, are they the right people for my business that actually know what they're doing? Because otherwise, just bringing in everybody may actually raise your risk instead of lowering your risk.
Yeah.
So that is an important thing we have to keep in mind. But I think, from a perspective, if I was an SMB, I'm sitting at my desk, I'm wearing many hats. I want to start today to get more visibility into my network. What do I do? What do I spin up? Is there a VM I can spin up? Is there something where I can quickly get something up and running to give me more insight than I had, an hour ago?
So I know Alexander and Rod has some cool ideas, but I'm gonna throw out I'm a basics guy, right? And I love the basics, right? Everybody that has connected to the internet, whether you bought your own hardware as an SMB or you're leasing it from your internet service provider, right? You have some visibility right there, right? Log on to your router, right? Or your modem or whatever the heck it is, cable, fiber, DSL, whatever, right? And see who's connected to it, right? Look at the traffic, look at the tools you have in place right there, because that's a good place to start. And most people go, oh man, I have no idea where to start. Start there first, right? Because that's going to give you the first idea of where you need to go. And then we get into what Rod and Alexander are going to talk about, right? They're sort of step one, I would think.
Yeah, that's an easy one. Even just trying to figure out who's connected to your Wi-Fi and are they the right people. As an SMB, right? Like there's lots of people who siphon traffic, get onto your Wi-Fi and do all kinds of nasty stuff and kind of stay there. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, getting on your router, making sure you familiarize yourself with the stuff that you're running, right? So if you have the capabilities, get on your router, take a look. As I said, I'm a big fan of Nmap and then there's Zmap as well too, that you can load the GUI but if you don't know your IP space, you should know the IP space that you assigned to your internal network.
Yep.
I posted a cheat sheet. You can scan that IP block that's on your network and look for devices, OSs, etc. And then you can start going through one by one. Is that Susie's machine? Is that Brad's machine? Is that Alexander? And then be able to say, okay, there's 3 machines I don't know.
Okay. Cool. Now, I think one thing to bring up right now, which would be interesting, that because I think there's a lot of misnomer out there where, in the Wi-Fi world, people think that if you do like MAC address blocking, or your white or allow listing certain addresses, we know from being in the field and in the industry that doesn't actually protect you at all from any serious threat, because in Wi-Fi, the actual information, the MAC address information and the handshake actually transmits that information publicly through the airwaves. So even if I see Alexandre computer in there, somebody will look at that and say, okay, it's my computer, it's my name, it's my MAC address, it's going to be me. Well, that's actually not true at all. And I think that's where we start looking at more advanced tools to say it really comes down to the behavior. And it comes down to, we don't want to get into talking about zero trust today in this show. But, it's about a question of, just because it looks like you, again, it's almost like if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's probably a chicken. I don't know. Is that right? No.
Yeah.
Anyway, so but you have to be careful. So always take a look at certain other things. So look a little bit deeper, because you don't want to say, okay, well, it keeps connecting. It just connected 10 minutes ago, and or you see 3 of you. There's 3 different cases of you being in the network, and that doesn't actually look correct. So maybe at that point, it's time to change the Wi-Fi password, because how many times do people keep the same password on their Wi-Fi, not even a strong password, and they keep running it for year after year after year? And if they don't actually audit these logs, first of all, they don't even know if anybody got on there just by cracking the password, or if they're using other advanced, techniques to get on there and actually spoof your address. So, what are your thoughts on that? Is it still worth going in there and saying, I'm only going to allow certain devices to have access to my network? Is it of any value to keep, let's say, the rudimentary threats from somebody next door just doing basic hacking? Does it stop them, or is it of any use today with what's out there? What the automation tools that are out there?
Well, do you live in a place where you have 70 or 80 Wi-Fi AP around your position? Or do you live like me, more in a isolated area where there's no one around? That's your self-risk assessment posture. And what do you offer a network? What are you willing to risk? That's the first question. That should, like, if you are in a city with many people around, the likelihood of having some script kiddies playing around with your Wi-Fi is most likely higher than lost in the countryside. So maybe if you are in that situation, it could be good, even to hide your SSID or just to have a complex password. Just jumping back on the topic, because one point is there is something free that anyone can do, and this is about knowing your modem router and stuff. It's about applying updates. This is as basic as that. Like anything you have, apply updates. And what people don't realize, like if you have a network printer, that's an actual server on your network, and just make sure that you apply an update on that. Just that, because you know what? Your Wi-Fi printer on your network, it's broadcasting a signal as well. And if it's not patched, it could be an entry door. So, and that's free. There is no skills. You go on the brand site on the manufacturer, see if you can download an update for it and just apply it. And take all your assets, cameras, IoT, whatever. Check that there is a firmware update. You do that like once a month, or even if you do that once every 6 months, you're going to be in a much better shape than any small shop around already. And that's totally free. There is nothing to do about that.
And
go ahead, Rod.
If it's end of life, get rid of it, right? So if the manufacturer is no longer supporting it, get rid of it. But to your first point, Ron, like, yes, for somebody who's sophisticated or somebody who can find the right script, doing MAC whitelists, et cetera, may seem like it doesn't work, but it's about layers, right? So anything I can do to minimize the ability of somebody to get in, or make somebody who gets in be really, really sophisticated, you should, right? Yeah. And so it really comes down to that is one, understanding what you have under your ownership or network control, and making sure they're patched, and making sure you know what they are, and you know what good looks like. I know that on a normal day I have 10 people in the office. there's 15 there's 15 things on the network right now. What are those 5 things? Like, if you don't know what good looks like, and excuse me, a fire breaks out, now you're just looking at everything as a problem, right? So you have to understand what your baseline is, and then you can actually troubleshoot effectively.
No, that's a good point. I like that. No.
And absolutely. I mean, I agree with Rod. I mean, you want to add as many layers as you can, right? Yes. Can you spoof MAC addresses? Absolutely. Can you set up a rogue Wi-Fi access point and hoover up other people's stuff and give them a sinkhole or a redirect where you can gather the data you want and then pass them off to the actual Wi-Fi? Absolutely. Can you do that? Yes. Right. Does that happen on a regular basis? Yes. But if you make it hard, right, and this is the trick, if you make it hard for them, right, guess what? They're going to move over to the dentist office next door who doesn't do so good with the whole security thing, and they're going to steal their data, not yours, right? And that sounds a little crass, right? Yeah. But I don't want them in my business, right? So if I can make it hard enough, especially for low-level folks, the SMB level, to keep them out of my business, right, and they go someplace else, well, sorry, next door neighbor, I feel bad, kind of, not really. You want to make sure and you want to take as many precautions and steps as you possibly can to get yourself secure, and then maybe you worry about the people around you.
Yeah. And Brad,
go ahead. Al.
You spoke about the dentist office, and all the stuff. And one easy thing, because it drives me nuts when I go to the dentist and you lay on that seat and you get the PC on your left and all the USB ports are wide open looking at you. And there is a simple trick. You can buy online some USB port lockers. That's as easy as it is. It's a little plastic stuff that you stick with a key inside the USB port. And if you have 10 pieces, it's going to cost you like $50. And you just lock them. If you are a car dealer, they use your credit information, driver license, the crazy sensitive PII. And you have all these PCs on the desk with USB wide open facing customers. So to be honest, like dropping a USB anything on that, it's super easy. If you put just these little plastic stuff, it's not a software, you don't have to care about it, you just plug it in. Yeah. And anyone non-technical can do that, and then you close a huge gap on the thread. And that's, even these days, there are less people in the office. I mean, at work, there may be like 10 people instead of 200. And there is plenty of room for anyone to get in and sneak around. So physical security, especially with the current context, is something you care around. But now we speak about SMBs, a cashier machine in a shop. And same thing, USB port in front, just put a little plastic strap. Google that, find that online, and you'll find some. That's easy, simple. You block that issue.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great point, because when we talk about visibility, it's not just so much of visibility into the network from a digital perspective. It's also visibility from an awareness perspective, from a physical sense, that you should actually be looking around the office and say, what is that? Or and start really thinking about. And I remember one of our mutual friends that we all know, Jeremiah Stillins, has that series he talks about. If I was a bad guy. And, and I think that, you need to kind of look around your office in that perspective and say, if I was a bad guy or if I was a cyber criminal, what would I do? And looking at these different devices and situations and network, like, oh, look, there's an open network jack and it's completely wide open and you plug it in, you can just get internet. If I was a bad guy, what would I do with that? And I think if you start thinking in that context, as you go around your office and as you go around your digital domain, as you view things, it starts. I think you start thinking differently about, what actually am I at risk of happening to me? Because, well, I have to start thinking like them. I have to start thinking like the criminals that are going to come in. So I know we're kind of getting to the end of the 30 minutes. I know this. I think this is a great episode and a great visibility. So I think a good end out for this. If I'll go through one at a time. So. Brad, if you want to start first, so just kind of maybe one parting point in terms of whether it's a tool, a tip, whatever, for people in terms of visibility, to be better at it. And
no, absolutely, and like I said, I'll keep it short, right? You please look at your Wi-Fi, look at your modems, right? Understand what's on there, right? Start with that, right? Because that's going to give you an initial idea, an initial look at what's happening in your networks.
Cool, Rod, how about you?
I echo what Brad said. I encourage everybody to if you're not a Linux person, download the Windows version of Nmap, play with it. It allows you to hands off, get a view for what's going on your network, It's not hard. I pasted the cheat sheet, and we can follow up in the messages afterwards. Don't be afraid to look. Take the covers off. Go see what's going on.
That's awesome. Alex, you want to close us out with what you're thinking there?
Yeah. 2 points. Again, if you have open USB port, look for blocking them because it's a big entry point. And second tip, anything you download from internet that is not your file, scan it with Virus Total. Always. Anything you download, good practice. You're on a small shop, you get an attachment, Virus Total, check it. And that's going to protect you a lot because at least you will know if there is a risk. And if there is any risk, just don't open it.
Exactly.
Cool.
Oh, and
yeah, you broke up there.
You had mentioned last week the Veeam thingy, that the Veeam software. If you can post that for folks, because I never knew of it, and it's pretty dirt simple to use.
Oh yeah, this is a Veeam 1. That's the monitoring for your VM workloads. Maybe next time we will just speak a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's awesome. Well, I'd like to thank everybody who came in and posted some questions and comments, and it was fantastic. I think it was a great first episode, and we will be doing these on a regular basis. We haven't really decided if it's going to be every month, every 2 weeks, at a whim. Maybe Alex, he might get drunk one day, log into my account, and either do one of these. I mean,
I don't drink, buddy.
We know what's going to happen, but anyway, we will. Well, keep these going. I think it was fantastic. And, really the goal is to really help you do better with your security posture, so hopefully, we can be useful in some regard. And Harold is going to leave us out with a thing for the win. And well said. Anyway, it was nice talking to you guys. And we will see everybody later. And thanks for joining us.
Be well.
Thank you, guys.
Well.
Bye.
Excellent. Was good.